before you click away from this video, you might want to hang around because we're looking at our top tips for the RV life in 2025. And what we're going to show here in this video is just some snippets of several videos that we have put out over the course of the last year. And what I really encourage you to do is any of these topics that you find interesting, go check out the original video, and we're going to put all of those links down in the description below. So let's get started with our first video. And I really like this one because there's a lot of tips in it, but specifically what I like about this video is some top tips to keep you safe on that travel day. So a couple of things here. This morning it's pretty cold out here. I think it's still only about 35, 36 degrees, which means these tires have lost a lot of air pressure. They haven't lost any air, but they've lost a lot of air pressure because of the colder temperatures. And while I'm doing this, I just want to talk a little bit about this air compressor. A lot of you have watched my video on comparing a couple of air compressors. I used to have a tank style compressor that required 120 volt power, so I had to plug it into an outlet to use it. And I really liked that air compressor, except the fact that I had to plug it into an outlet, which for a lot of people isn't going to work all the time. If you get a flat tire on the side of the road, you may not have an inverter, may not be able to plug that thing in. Now what we've got is this Viair pump, and I really love this thing. And the good thing about this one is, I keep it in the bed of my truck in my toolbox, and it is battery operated, or it's 12 volt DC operated. And basically I never go anywhere without having a power supply for this pump. It's either the car battery, the truck battery, or it's the RV battery. The other thing we're gonna do this morning is I'm gonna make sure that we're still at the right torques on these wheels. And I think I've said it in the past, I don't do this before every underway, but I do this for several underways after I do anything with these wheels at all. So if I change a tire, then the next several underways, I'll check the torque on that tire, probably all four of them since I've got it out. Or if I do the brakes, or I just did the bearing work maybe a week ago. We've had one underway day since then, and so I'm going to go ahead and check these because basically I know that these wheels have been messed with recently, so I just want to make sure for a few underways that the torques are all still good. And then one final thing, I love this one. There's always that one guy, or actually it's usually several people that say, hey, just get your torque gun out, give it 3 or 4 good ugga-duggas and call it a day. Sorry guys, if you're one of those people, that's not the way this works. That's a good way to lose a wheel, or strip out one of these lug nuts or whatever. Don't do it that way. Get yourself a torque wrench, find out what your torques are supposed to be, and just do it the right way. It's not hard. Okay, so again, those were just kind of some teasers from that original video, but I do recommend that you go check out the rest of it because it's full of just more tips out there on how to make RV life just a little bit easier and even a little bit cheaper. Now this next video is all about our septic tanks. So a few months ago, we had a professional come out, and during the shooting of that video, I was able to kind of pull that guy away from his work for a little bit to talk about his top do's and don'ts for your septic tank maintenance. So I've got a clean tank guy coming out today he's gonna clean all 3 of our tanks. We got 2 grays and a black, so he's gonna clean all 3 tanks. So now we're here at the rig. We're gonna get started on this tank cleaning, and we're gonna start with that kitchen gray I was talking about, because that's the problem area. So we want to start there, knock that out, get it out of the way. So this is Jay from Clean Tank.
How's everybody doing?
First of all, I want to hear Jay's spiel on tanks and maybe a couple of do's and don'ts for our tank. So let's hear the spiel.
Okay, basically everybody should know that you do not have a septic tank in your RV. You have a holding tank. And all those store-bought chemicals like Happy Camper, Unique, Liquify, don't get me wrong, they do exactly what they say they're gonna do. They break down your solids. Problem is, they break down your solids as if it is a septic tank. So over time, you get this big, thick pancake mix across the bottom of your tank,
Yummy.
Which causes a bunch of other problems. It changes the volume of the tank. It makes it easier for pyramids and clogs to form and build, and it just contains odors.
Yeah.
So you don't want to keep that pancake mix in your tanks.
Now, what about things like
Toilet paper.
There you go.
Okay. You can use any type of toilet paper you want. It does not have to be that type of toilet paper where you say the word water next to it and it dissolves. I personally use Charmin 2-ply Ultra Strong. All you got to do is you got to make sure you use enough water. The way I do it is after I dump the tanks, I pump 2 gallons of water back into my 35-gallon tank. But every time I use the bathroom, I at least finish filling up the bowl and flushing it again in order to get at least a half a gallon back into the tanks every time you flush. That way you're using enough water in order to get that vortex going when you dump your tanks.
All right, this next video was one of my favorites because we talk about a lot of things in the RV world that just aren't worth buying. There's a lot of things out there that a lot of companies are trying to sell you, and they're just scams. So in this video, we're talking about some of those things that we think are scams, and then we also talk about some things that we have in an RV that go beyond just the necessities like septic hoses and water hoses and stuff like that, but rather things that we couldn't imagine living in our RV without. Next on our list here is a good quality dehumidifier. So you can see we've got a pretty big one here. RVs can become very, very humid on the inside, which leads to moisture buildup in a lot of places that you don't want moisture buildup inside of an RV. Now, you don't necessarily need anything this big. We bought this one because eventually we'll have a home base with something a little bit bigger that we're going to be living in, and we wanted to make sure that this thing was big enough for that as well. So the key thing about dehumidifiers is that you definitely want to make sure you get one with a compressor. They make all of these little tiny dehumidifiers out there. They don't have a compressor in them, and so really all they're doing is just kind of passing air through them, and it really just doesn't take out a lot of moisture from the air. In our first RV, we had a little 23-foot bumper pull. We had one of those smaller ones with no compressor, and it essentially did nothing to dehumidify the air inside of that RV. So make sure you get one that's got a compressor, and make sure that it's good for, whatever the square footage of your rig is. Next, we're going to talk about one of the most important and critical pieces of gear in your RV, and that is the battery. So many people take their battery for granted, and that can really lead to a lot of different problems in your RV. So what we're talking about in this video is not what everybody else has for their battery setup, but rather what we're talking about is how to determine exactly how much battery you need for your RV lifestyle. Today we're talking about batteries in your RV. It's one of the most common questions that not only do I hear, but I see on Facebook forums, and that is, how many batteries or how big of a battery do I need in my RV? What I really wanted to do was talk about how to determine how much battery you need. And spoiler alert, the lithium batteries, in my opinion, are the way to go. I'm a big believer in lithium batteries. We're going to talk a little bit about why that is. And these things are a lot cheaper than they were even just a few years ago. So there are a lot of lithium batteries out there that are really within, I think, everybody's price point. Today, we're not talking brands. We're not really talking about chemistry of the battery, although we're going to touch on it just a little bit. But what we're really going to talk about is the math, and we're going to help you determine how much battery you need in your RV for your specific lifestyle, and then you can decide on what type of battery you need for your own RV. All right, and last but not least, this next video is one that I recommend that everybody watches if you haven't seen it already, because this is something that every RVer out there needs to be doing to protect their RVs and all of the components in it when you plug into a pedestal at a campground. So if you haven't seen this video and maybe you're not real clear about what I'm talking about here, I really recommend you click that link down below and watch the entire video.
The one thing that saved our bacon was the emergency power off feature of our Hughes Power Watchdog. It sensed that the shore power voltage was too low, and it shut off power to our rig, potentially saving us from damaging our AC unit or other expensive appliances. If I was making a list of the most important accessories you need on your RV, a good surge protector with an emergency power off feature would be squarely at the top of that list. Here's where I see a lot of folks making the same mistake, because not all surge protectors are the same. So let's take a quick look at what most basic surge protectors do and don't do. A basic surge protector will generally do two things. It will reduce the chances of damaging your appliances as a result of a power surge. I think we all get that. And most reputable surge protectors will also monitor the power at the pedestal. The problem with these basic surge protectors is that, even if they do monitor the power, they don't do anything about it if they detect an issue like low voltage, high voltage, or an open ground. These are all very hazardous conditions for your RV, and some of them are hazardous to you.
All right, guys, so that's going to wrap it up for this week. Again, we're wrapping up the year here just like you are, and we hope that you guys have good holidays coming up here in the next couple of weeks. And again, after the first of the year, we'll start bringing out some new content. And until then, happy camping and stay safe out there, guys.